while Activision Blizzard have their own problems as a result of the toxicity, which, by the way, is a really reductive term to describe abuse, Riot Games have decided, actually, fuck it. We were just as bad, if not worse, but we can actually come out looking like we're the good guys. So, this is the news that Riot Games have finally settled their gender discrimination lawsuit. They've done it by agreeing to pay $100 million by way of a settlement. And then just before we get into the bare bones of this story, let me just remind you all of the history. I recommend, by the way, because this will be on YouTube now, even though I did do this live, guys, you're in the future now watching an edited version of this video, so maybe, I don't know, can I make things pop up here? But check out, probably that way. You can go and check out other videos I've done in this topic. I think there's a video that kind of starts it all off called Riot Games is still awful, because they still are, or were, and are. And basically, what happened initially was all of these lawsuits came in pertaining to abuse, pertaining to women not having promotion opportunities within the company, women not having the same salaries as guys despite doing work that was equivalent, far, far worse. I don't want to get into having to issue trigger warnings or anything like that, but sexual abuse, sexual harassment, things that shouldn't happen ever. Not just in working environment. A lot of women came forward about this, and the California, which is where Riot's head offices are based, despite basically being on that 10-cent Chinese money teat. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing conducted its own investigation and basically came out and said, we feel confident putting in a lawsuit. And as a result of that lawsuit, what they did was they initially said, all right, yeah, look, tell you what, we'll settle for $10 million. $10 million, right? And very bizarre reaction to the $10 million settlement. Because if you know anything about, first of all, Riot Games, and second of all, Tencent, and you know about the type of money they make, I actually did see some people at the time say, oh, hey, 10 million. Wow, if that gets spread between like the 3 women we can name from the lawsuit, they've made loads of money. That'll show them, right? Of course, first of all, the monetary amount that you put on pain and suffering because you've been sexually harassed, and sexually abused, something that leaves trauma you may never fully recover from. Generally, those types of settlements tend to recognize that and tend to give you a life-changing amount of money to counteract the way your life has negatively been changed by the abuse, pain and suffering. It's something that they factor into these things. Next of all is obviously when awards for that type of stuff are given, when settlements like that are given, it's usually such a large amount as to be a deterrent, not just to the company that did it, but also to other companies in a similar field. And so 10 million on the face of it is absolutely fucking nothing. There's nothing to Riot. What was also outrageous, they were going to settle for 10 million, and part of the settlement was an agreement that moving forward, they wouldn't have forced arbitration. Now, what is forced arbitration? For those who don't know, and I've talked about this a lot, so apologies if it's going over, repetitive ground, but it's important for the story. Basically, forced arbitration is where you, in a contract, agree that if you ever have a legal grievance with your employer, you will not go to a court, you will not pursue a civil suit, you cannot, you must go to an arbitration court. Now, arbitration courts, arbitrators, they work in close contact with these companies. They can't exist without the companies using these clauses. And as a result, and I've worked in instances where, when I've been a union representative, where people have been advised to go to arbitration, you never do it because you generally tend to not get as much money, and on top of that, there is no public record of the wrongs you suffered. It's not like a civil suit. A civil suit, it gets filed. It's a publicly available document. You can go and get the legal document and see what the company was up to. So to spare themselves the embarrassment, a lot of these companies, they just go to forced arbitration, give you a low derisory payout, and nobody knows what they did, and they continue to do the bad practices. They agreed that, and then when the Department of Fair Employment and Housing came out and went, whoa, who's taking this 10 million? Because what you have to remember is when they did the class action suit, 2,300 women came along with complaints about working at Riot Games. 2,300 women. And when you consider that settlement would have to go to the worse the abuse, you get a bigger portion. The longer you worked without getting a pay rise commensurate to what you did, you have to get more. And once it all gets divided up, it would have been absolutely fucking nothing. So the Department of Fair Employment and Housing said, no, we're not taking 10 million. That's outrageously low. And so Riot said, okay, right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the legal drawing board, draw up the battle lines. They hired some super notorious piece of shit lawyers, like union buster types. And they basically said, listen, we also think that we don't even have to pay a settlement to the people that initially would have got the settlement because they agreed to go into arbitration and we can get a court to agree it's invalid. So away it went, more legal wrangling, and then we arrive at this number of 100 million, again, for the 2,300 women. A much better result, a much fairer result, 10 times what they were willing to pay out. But when I read you their statement, and they make it sound like they were willing and happy to do this, I'm going to just tell you, here's what actually went down, right? And people will say, Richard, but you don't know, you're not a fly on the wall. No, I'm not. But I have an understanding of this type of stuff. Remember, I'm an old man. I've been around a long time. Seen a lot of shit. Activision Blizzard continue to shit the bed. Activision Blizzard's response to the abuse allegations have been unbelievably poorly received by commentators, by other businesses. As I said, we're at a stage where other businesses feel comfortable, basically coming out and saying, hey, Activision Blizzard, suck balls. And it's like, that never happens. Corporations never dig out other corporations publicly, not even direct business rivals, because eventually one day you're going to be on the chopping block. So they all protect each other with this kind of set of norms about what you do and don't say. So this was basically their way of being like, look, if we just settle, all of their negative headlines are going to go on Activision Blizzard. And remember, Activision Blizzard are being sued by the same entity that was suing them. It's a way for Riot Games. And 100 million is still fucking nothing. It's nothing to a company like Riot Games. But it enables them to make this go away relatively quickly. Meanwhile, Activision Blizzard are embroiled in at least 5 lawsuits I can think of off the top of my head. And they're going to continue to get the bulk of the negative attention, the bulk of the focus of the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, who will now be able to cite this settlement as they go after Activision Blizzard. And I think Riot have just done a strategic move to essentially get rid of it. Anyway, this is how it was written up in CNN. Obviously, a bastion of journalistic truth and integrity. Tencent Holdings Riot Games on Monday said it has agreed to pay a $100 million settlement to settle a 2018 gender-based discrimination class action lawsuit with California state agencies and current and former women employees. The company said it will pay $80 million to the members of the class action suit, comprising all current and former full-time women employees and temporary agency contractors in California who worked from November 2014 to present. An additional $20 million will be paid towards attorneys' fees. They made big skrilla on that, and miscellaneous expenses, Riot Games said in its statement. Other stipulations of the agreement include Riot funding a diversity and inclusion program, job assignments to be conducted by a third party, and an audit of workplace investigations. And I want you to remember that. I want you to remember that when Riot Games announced these things, and the games press, who are in cahoots with Riot Games and every other big games developer of all time, go, well, listen, Riot used to have problems, but look at the positive changes they're making. They're legally mandated to, as part of a settlement. They're not doing it because they give a shit. They're doing it because they fucking have to legally. Because they lost a fucking lawsuit. They didn't lose. They agreed to settle rather than lose and settle bigger. Yeah, you know, I'm sure that Riot is full of good people now. No, never. The Riot Games statement read, in an effort to drive ongoing transparency and accountability, Riot is also committed to having its internal reporting and pay equity processes monitored by a third party jointly approved by Riot and the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing for 3 years, the company said. A final approval of the settlement by the court is pending, with a hearing expected in the coming months. Women have been demanding for years that employers end discrimination. We hope this settlement marks a turning point in the way allegations of sexual harassment and gender discrimination are treated in workplaces across California and beyond, said a spokesperson for the Department of Fair Employment and Housing to CNN Business. So, there it is, you can see as well, confirmation of the 2,300 women who joined the suit. You can also see here, 3 years ago, this is the Riot statement continues. 3 years ago, Riot was at the heart of what became a reckoning in our industry. We had to face the fact that despite our best intentions, we hadn't always lived up to our values. As a company, we stood at a crossroads. We could deny the shortcomings of our culture, or we could apologize, correct course, and build a better Riot. We chose the latter. While we're proud of how far we've come since 2018, we must also take accountability for the past. We hope that this settlement properly acknowledges those who had negative experiences at Riot and demonstrates our desire to lead by example in bringing more accountability and equality to the games industry. I don't know if you know this, but because I've been talking about it for a long time, I feel like my viewers would definitely know this. Riot Games are one of the biggest pieces of shit company that's ever trampled through, certainly esports, probably gaming as well. These guys are bullies. These guys are abusive. They have done unconscionable things to so many people. Shit that isn't even being talked about. Shit that hasn't even come up in the course of the Department of Fair Employment and Housing investigations. I know right now, by the way, Froskerin is getting slammed for things that she said. And me, I'm not that type of guy. Maybe I even was that guy, 5 years ago, where I would have made a reaction video and waded into the chudosphere. I'm not really interested in that. But, she made comments in reaction to the backlash that she's currently getting, basically saying that she tried to unionize talent after not being paid by Riot Games while she worked on the broadcast for 6 months and had to endure abusive working conditions. Now, whatever you think about what she said in that G4 broadcast, the subsequent reaction, her subsequent reaction, I'm not a fucking drama YouTuber, so I don't give a shit. But that right there should tell you that there are so many fucking things going on that don't get talked about. There are so many things that go on that Riot still do. They're settling this and dealing with this and talking about how they're changing their culture because legally they have to. This is too serious. It's a sweeping change that's happening all through California. No business will be spared. No tech business will be spared. If there are reports, a saturation of reports of the abuse of women, they're coming for you. They're going to get you for that. And good. Fuck them. Burn it all down. But the reality is, the idea that they've changed their culture internally, for as long as they have been in this business, Riot Games have been bullied. I am talking about the minor, as I've said many times. When you went to an after party in esports, I'll just give you some specific examples because I don't give a fuck. I remember being at an IEM, an Intel Extreme Masters, back when Riot Games had were in partnership with ESL and they ran tournaments there. And basically, we had a press room. And press rooms are generally shit, but ESL does their best. The Intel ones are generally better than the other ones. This was at Gamescom, if I remember rightly. And so basically, we had a press room. It had monitors so you could see the games that were going on. It had like bottles of water for the press. We actually got water at this one. Wow, what a fucking perk of the job. It had like a little sofa type area so people could get like naps or, set up little interview segments, like casual on a couch type thing. It was, not a terrible setup, but for the time, not great either. It was just what you got. Anyway, for whatever reason, well, I know the reason. Because Riot Games were just like fucking maniacs at the time that League of Legends was taking off, they basically hijacked the press room. So this was in the day. This is before we even get to the after party bullshit. They literally came in to the fucking press room and basically told journalists to move. So journalists who had got their setups, had their laptops, were looking at the monitors. Riot execs came into us and said, move. And we went, well, why do we need to move for you? And they said, we're Riot. That's our game you're watching. That's no joke. That was their attitude. They were an absolute shower of cunts. You'll never know what it was like. Then, by the way, when they still couldn't, they couldn't beat the journalists who are in there at the start of the day. They're in there at like 7, 8 a.m. You get set up, you get as much content as you can. They basically took the monitors. Riot Games said, listen, we can't get good seats when the monitors are right now. We want the monitors somewhere where we can exclusively sit and watch the games. So they took away the press's monitors and set them up somewhere for them in a little area in the press room that became Riot Games only. Not to mention, it was strongly intimated by some of the suits that if you talked back or if you did content they didn't like, ESL would agree to just have you removed from the premises. Then you do that, then it gets to the after party. The after party was funded by a separate company. It was like, because the other thing that you used to do back in esports, I don't know if they still do this now, but it used to be your after party was in conjunction with someone. Twitch used to do them because it's a good way to get branding. You give everyone a free drink, everyone gets pissed up, they all love the company that gave them the sauce because we're all functional alcoholics in esports anyway. And so basically, this was someone else's after party, another company that works in esports, another sponsor of the event, and we were all at the bar, and it was just one bar, and people were queuing up, and we just saw them come in like a fuck. It was like Gen Pop in prison. They were all there in their red t-shirts, right? And they were all wasted, and they were pushing past everybody, and I was at the bar getting a drink. Someone leant across, put their arm across my face and said, 4 beers or whatever, like that. And I said, excuse me, mate, I'm being served here. And they turned around and went, what the fuck are you talking about? We're Riot Games. This is our event. Wasn't their event. Wasn't their after party. But by virtue of having their game on at their event, you had to let these drunken narcissists do whatever they want. That is boots on the ground, shit tier, glorified customer support losers, by the way, behaving like that. It's not just Mark Merrill and Brandon Beck that had fucking egos. So that was their type of behavior at events. I'll give you another example. Obviously, I was blacklisted for a bit. Can't think why. I was blacklisted, but I did get to go to an All-Stars event in Paris, and I got some interviews. They're still out there. I've still got the laptop they're all saved on. Maybe one day I'll put them out. I got to interview Double Lift, and I think I interviewed Meteos, and I think I might have interviewed Bjergsen. Anyway, I interviewed all the people that were there, and while I was at that event, because I was Richard Lewis, they tailed me. They put a tail on me. Like I was a criminal. They had a member of security follow me. And I remember one time I was doing one of my video tours that I used to be famous for, do a video tour of the event. And in the middle of the video tour, right, because I was like, and this is the production area, and I wasn't in it, I was just sweeping past it, like, over there's the production area. A fucking meathead security guard grabbed hold of me and started wrestling the camera out my hands. Now, obviously, you might have heard a thing or two. I don't take too kindly to people getting in my physical fucking space. So that nearly turned into a weird incident. And he was a big fucking guy, I'll tell you. But That was the type of nonsense. And the head of press then, who, by the way, I got fucking dirt on that cunt. Save that for a rainy day. The head of press then basically was like, immediate, like, oh, you've tried to invade our personal space. You know, there's no stories here. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I went like that with a camera. If there's something that untoward going on behind that fucking door, seems like you should be more worried about that than what I'm doing out here, you know? So they were just absolute scum. I mean, they're all scum. And all the people who've left the company and they come out and go, oh, you know, we had no idea. No. No, you were all doing it. You were all doing it. You thought it would never end. I told you as well, like, what's that guy's name? Nick Allen fucking threatening me because I basically said Travis was a shithead or something. And so Nick Allen, who was like a press liaison guy and like dealing with LCS and stuff, or LEC or whatever it was back then, basically warned me. I've still got the Skype thing. He said, you're not making any friends in this industry. I'm here. Who the fuck are you working for now? That's who they were. And they all come out and try and pretend they weren't bullies. They didn't threaten people. So by the way, if that's how they're willing to treat people like me, public journalists, I'm not bound by any NDAs. I can just talk about what utter cunts you were till the cows come home, and all you can do is fucking deny it, and let's see who people trust. You know, former employee of a horrific abusive company that's now been absolutely wrecked in multiple lawsuits for said abuse that you covered up, or journalist with a 100% accuracy record. Think even the community will make up their minds on that one. Riot Games claiming they care about abuse.